you filed a protest in regards to the long-form applications for the
Yes.
You
know, I know you're having trouble with the Whiteclay, but I'm in Hay Springs. I help run a store there at the Center. I also run a nonprofit called Special Need Advocates and Parents who work with fetal alcohol. I realize we can't talk about fetal alcohol, so I will talk about the incident I had at the Good Neighbor Center. We were working. I work with a lady who is 77 years old. Her and I started this 25 years ago. We're on our 25th year. We deal with a lot of low-income, impoverished people. We get a lot of reservation people there. This particular day, we were swamped. It was a gorgeous day. Everybody came because the roads were dry and they could get out. I had a lady, not a Native American, a local lady come in. This client has severe mental illness, and she got very quickly out of hand and attacked my 77-year-old partner there. I had another lady volunteer. I said, quick, call 911, and she handed me the phone. And I told them I needed an officer there, that this woman was becoming extremely violent, and I was scared. I was between her and this older lady, and quite frankly, I can handle myself, but this lady scared me. And they said, I'm sorry, ma'am, all our officers are in Whiteclay. And I said, well, what about you on the phone? And he said, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't clock in for 15 minutes. So 45 minutes later, an officer showed up at the Good Neighbor Community Center. By then, this lady was gone. I had handled the situation. I probably gained 20 more gray hairs. It scared the T-Wad out of me. And he said, well, do you want me to go to her house and talk to her? And I said, no, because then she's going to be back up here, and you won't be here. So this happens a lot. We wait a long time. I had a security room put in at the free store to protect my volunteers.
And you said you live in Hay Springs.
Yes, sir.
How far is Hay Springs from Whiteclay?
Hay Springs is approximately, let's see, probably about 35 miles.
Is it Sheridan County?
Yeah.
Yes, we are in Sheridan.
Sheridan County. Now, would it be in the southwestern part of Sheridan County?
Oh, I'm terrible with directions. We're close to Chadron. We're real close to the South Dakota border.
Oh, you're so north, okay.
Yeah.
So you'd be west of Whiteclay.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And the county sheriff, their office is in Rushville, correct? Is that where the headquarters are?
Yes, their office is located in Rushville. When I went to a commissioners meeting and complained about lack of law enforcement, and my response from the 3 commissioners was, and I quote, Hay Springs does not contract for police support. Go talk to your city council. I went to the city council and I said, we need police here. Can't we hire a local cop or something? Because we need help. We're not getting it from Sheridan County. And the mayor told me, well, I can't say what the mayor told me, but the answer was, go back to your commissioner. So nobody's giving me help here.
So just to cut to the chase, you believe that from your testimony, that in Sheridan County, if you're not in an area which has its own police force, like Rushville or Gordon.
Gordon City, yeah, would be correct.
That if you're relying upon the sheriff, there's a resource problem. There's not. You guys think there needs to be more?
I think there needs to be more sheriffs. And from what I understand, at the last commissioners meeting I was at, they lost a person. They were down to 4 for all of Sheridan County, not counting, of course, the chief of police.
Okay. So, do you understand how many sworn officers, are you aware of how many officers are part of the sheriff's department at Sheridan
4.
County?
What's the sheriff?
Does that include Sheriff Robbins or
No.
in addition to?
That does not include
So Sheriff Robbins is 4 deputies.
Right.
Anything further?
I think, I'd like to tell you a whole lot, but of course I can't.
Okay, well, you know, unfortunately, that's the way laws and evidence work sometimes.
Yeah.
These lawyers might have some questions for you as well. Ms. Wiles, any questions?
Ms.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Dominic?
Go ahead.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
I just want to help a little bit with the geography.
All right.
Is Hay Springs on US Highway 20?
Yes,
And it would be on the Shadron side, which would be west of Rushville, is that correct?
correct.
And Whiteclay, of course, is not on US Highway 20. It's north of Rushville. on the
Correct.
southwest line.
That's right.
And do you mind telling us what is the population of Hay Springs, please?
Oh, it keeps dwindling. I think we're right around 600.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cross-examination, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you. Mrs. Vansler, are you aware that the Sheriff's Department hired a deputy month and a half ago?
It doesn't surprise me.
Okay. So they don't have just 4, do they?
Well, I guess not now, but still, I don't even think 5's enough.
It sounds like you are aware that Hay Springs as a town, made its decision not to contract with the law enforcement authority, Sheridan County, or law enforcement in your town, correct?
Because you gotta pay them when we have the money.
I think anywhere you're at, you've got to pay for law
But we pay
enforcement.
taxes for Sheridan County police officers to help us. So I don't
Your
know
town
why we
made the
should have to
decision
pay
not to
them for
contract.
your contract.
With the reminder, you all got one mic line, so question and answer. I mean, it's very hard because it's not normal conversation.
Yes, and I apologize.
So, you know, us lawyers, unfortunately, trained to talk this way. That's why we sound so stilted.
I just want to be clear, your town made the decision not hire, not pay the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office for law enforcement in
Correct.
Hay Springs.
That's
And Hay
correct.
Springs has how many liquor stores?
I don't know, because I don't go in.
They have at least 4 of them, don't they? Places that sell beer.
Let's see, look, actual where you fill bottles and
You've
stuff.
got a convenience store on the highway that sells
Yes,
stuff,
that one does.
And you've got other places that serve alcohol in Hay Springs.
Yes, there's a steakhouse, and I believe they do, and then there is a bar.
Did you protest any of those renewals?
I always protest renewals.
You did, you filed protest for their
When I
renewals.
know their renewals are up, oh, you mean with the liquor commission? No, they don't
Yes.
break the law.
You had quite a bit of native population coming down to Hay Springs, is that what you were referring
Very
to
much,
earlier?
so. We have a lot of native population.
Do you have any facts that any of the retailers in Whiteclay have broken the law that you've observed?
Well, I have been to Whiteclay. We held a conference there to draw attention to Whiteclay over the summer. And while I was there, yes, I saw staggering people around going and buying beer.
Not my question. Did you see any of the retailers break the law?
If that's not breaking the law, then no.
No, staggering people in public is not breaking the law.
I believe her comment was staggering people's going in and buying beer.
Did
That's
you go-
correct. That
Did you
was
go
my
into the
comment.
stores and watch them buy beer?
I do not enter bars.
Okay. Did you report any of this?
It doesn't do any good.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Mansell from the Commissioners?
No. Thank you.
Ms. Mansell, you're excused with us, thank you for coming down. And like I said, it's getting warm in here, guys.
They like fans or is it just the lawyers?
It's one last time, those are the only people that filed protests who wish to be, too wish to come forward. Anyone else? Seeing none. Ms. Wells, do you have any others, or Mr. Cooper, Mr. Schneider?
I believe that, Mr. Snyder has been calling the executive session, Major Fox and Sharon Ross.
Gonna call Major Kyle Haas.
179, please. So
Yes.
with that, we see this movie.
Okay. You're up.
Did you swear the testimony about to give me the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. For the record.
Thank you.
Please state your name, spell your name for the record, sir.
Kyle Ott, Kyleotte.
Mr. Schneider, is following your behalf.
Thank you. What is your occupation?
I'm a major with the Westwood.
Can you please give the commission a brief history of your time in law enforcement?
Yes, I've been in law enforcement for 32 years this year. I began my career in law enforcement in small communities in eastern Nebraska in 1985. In 1991, I became a Nebraska State Trooper and was assigned to Lexington. In 1998, I was promoted to Sergeant for Traffic Services in Scotts Bluff. In 2000, I was laterally transferred to Sergeant in Investigative Services, also in Scotts Bluff, of which I served until 2007 when I was promoted to Lieutenant in Investigative Services again in Scotts Bluff Troop E. In 2009, I was promoted to Troop Commander, Scotts Bluff Troop E, over the Field Services Division. And in June of 2011, I was promoted to Major of Administrative Services here in Lincoln State Headquarters. In June of 2015, I was laterally transferred to the Investigative Services Major, which is the position I hold now.
The Nebraska State Patrol was broken into troop divisions.
Yes, we are. We have 6 different troop areas across the state.
Which troop division covers Sheridan County?
Troop E.
And take Troop E is a place where you live. Can we describe you being in Scotts Bluff?
Correct. It's the entire panhandle, 11 counties of the panhandle of Nebraska.
In fact, you were the captain of Troop E for some period of time.
I was for about 2 years.
And Troop E covers basically the entire panhandle.
It does, yes.
How many investigators are assigned to Troop E?
Currently, we have 11 assigned to Troop E.
How many uniformed road officers assigned to Troop E?
Currently, there are 34 positions in Troop E on the roadside field services. They currently have 5 vacancies.
Are there officers and investigators that are assigned specifically to the Northern Panhandle and Sheridan County?
There are officers assigned to the Shadron Duty Station, which encompasses the counties of Dawes, Sioux, Fox Butte, and Sheridan County. Currently, we have 2 investigators that are assigned to that particular duty station, one in Shadron and one in Hemingford. There are approximately 9 uniformed officers assigned there. When the station is full, there are normally 2 uniformed troopers assigned to Sheridan County. Currently, there is 1 assigned to Gordon with 1 vacancy also in Gordon.
Where is the trooper that's assigned to Sheridan County base? Where does he live? He or she?
In Gordon.
In Gordon.
Right.
That a trooper is assigned to that area, does that prevent other troopers from going there?
No, it does not. All the troopers that are assigned to that particular duty station patrol all parts of that duty station. Or sergeant area is probably a better way to express it, yes.
So that, just to be clear, more than 1 trooper assigned to that sergeant, what do you call it?
Sergeant area.
Area.
Correct, yes.
And patrol in the Sheridan County and Whiteclay area.
Correct, yes. As I mentioned, they have responsibilities in all of those counties across the Northern Panhandle.
You testified earlier before legislative committees. As part of that, did you gather some information on hours invested by the Nebraska State Patrol in Whiteclay?
Yes, I did.
Did you do that for the years 2002 to 2015?
Yes, I did.
How many hours did the Nebraska State Patrol invest in Whiteclay in those years?
On the uniform side of the agency, there was 3,594 hours patrolled in Whiteclay.
And then that's over a 14-year period?
That's correct, yes.
Did you determine what that averaged out to?
At the time, that average was approximately 256.7 hours per year.
And that includes hours only for uniformed road officers?
That's correct, yes.
Were there additional hours for investigators?
There probably are, yes. There was some misunderstanding as to how hours should be coded when the investigators were working out there. That has since been remedied for 2016. And
So you don't have an exact number for 2002 or 2015?
I do not know.
It's fair to say that investigators, certainly the investigator that's assigned to that area for the Liquor Commission would be up there I'm not asking you to give a number of hours, but they go up there and do compliance checks and that type of thing.
Yes, they do.
From your review of those hours, has the state patrol's presence in Whiteclay over those 2002 to 2015 been fairly consistent, or were there years that far exceeded the norm or far less than the norm?
I have different foundation.
Have it overruled, you can testify.
In 2015, there was a small number of hours, much less than what the average was figured, to a total of about 55 to 56 hours.
Other than that, did you find any years that were far out of the norm?
Well, out of the average.
Out of the average.
The average was fairly consistent. There was higher and then there were lower. That's the average number. The hours in 2015, again, there may have been some misunderstanding of exactly how to code time while working in and around Whiteclay. I can't determine why those hours were low. There could be a reduction in calls for service or that inappropriate coding by employees.
What do you mean coding it? Just give us a brief description.
Every day that all of our employees work, they have a timesheet that has to be filled out and then submitted. Our uniform and investigative personnel, actually all of our personnel, put codes within that timesheet. And a method that we began back in approximately 2001 was to begin coding some time, or to determine a code that was used to track time that was worked in the Whiteclay area. So there may have been some misunderstanding of exactly when that code was to be put on a timesheet. And so then when we run the statistics, that information wasn't available.
So that would potentially skew the numbers downward.
Correct.
Now, the time spent in Whiteclay, what is it spent doing on average?
It could be anything. It could be a response for a call for service. It could be a routine patrol. It could be investigations. It could be time working, liquor compliance, liquor premise inspections, any of those things.
I'm going to move on to 2016. Did you compile similar hours for 2016?
Yes, I did.
How many uniformed road officer hours were in Whiteclay in 2016?
Approximately 374.5.
That's well above the average that we talked about.
Yes, it is.
Were you able to compile investigative hours as well for 2016?
Yes, I did.
What were those?
176.5.
So the total hours would be the 336 plus 176, did I get that right?
For a total of 550.
And is that total then more than the norm for Whiteclay?
Again, it's more than the average that we have
More than
determined between 2002 and 2015.
Is there any particular reason for that being increased?
There was a highway safety main grant worked by our uniformed personnel in 2016 for approximately 6 weeks from July 8th to August 22nd.
And you had a grant for those hours, correct?
Yeah, this was a Nebraska Highway Safety main grant that the uniform division obtained.
How many additional hours were put in during that time period?
Approximately 178.
How many enforcement contacts did you have in Whiteclay?
498.
That's during the same time period?
According to statistics, yes.
Okay. What do you define as an enforcement contact?
Anytime we have a contact with an individual, again, primarily on the uniform side, that would occur either in a vehicle or in person, and some type of written documentation occurs, that is determined to be an enforcement contact. It could be a citation to appear in court, it could be a warning, it could be a defect card. We have policy that indicates that we do not have any type of verbal warnings, and so all of our contacts have to be written, so it would be pretty much every time we contact someone.
And did you have citations and/or arrests that resulted from those contacts?
Yes.
What were they?
66 arrests occurred. Some of those arrests were custodial arrests, in which someone was actually taken to jail, or others were citations and then they were released on a signature.
What were the arrests or citations for in terms of the charges?
There were 8 open container violations, 5 drinking on public property, 5 DUI, 7 drug offenses, 12 suspended drivers, 2 concealed weapons, and 27 arrests on warrant.
Well, those 27 arrests due to warrants, does that include Nebraska and South Dakota warrants?
Mr. Schneider, I don't know.
Were there any citations during this enforcement period for liquor license violations by the beer retailers in Whiteclay?
Not that I'm aware of.
The investigative hours for 2016, that included some investigative hours for the investigator assigned by the Liquor Commission to that area, correct?
Yes, it did.
And that's Investigator Jackson?
Yes, it is.
Do you know how many hours he put in Whiteclay based on your statistics, or should I better ask him?
That would probably be a better question for Investigator Jackson.
I'm just going to clarify one thing. The patrol assigns them, there was a division assigned to us, we don't pick and choose who the division officers are, and then we should have clear on the record.
Yeah, I knew I said that probably wrong, but I understand.
Hey, all I gotta do is clear the record.
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose.
I didn't think so.
Did you also take a look into complaints regarding the liquor retailers beer retailers in Whiteclay?
Yes, and so we will investigate to the best of our ability any type of complaints that we receive, regardless whether they are criminal in nature or liquor in nature.
How many complaints did you receive in the last 2 years?
4.
Okay. As you said, you would investigate those 4 complaints, correct?
We would investigate them to the best of our ability, assuming that they were actionable complaints, items that we could do an investigation on.
Of those 4, did any of them merit further investigation by the State Patrol?
Objection, foundation.
Read the question.
Of those 4, did any merit further investigation by the Nebraska State Patrol?
Oh.
Yes, there was one that the Troop E uniform commander and our investigative services commander or lieutenant did an investigation.
Was the complaint substantiated?
It was not.
Objection, foundation.
All right. Hold on a second.
Yes.
I'm going to sustain the objection on hearsay, but on foundation now.
From your review of the information that you presented to the legislative committee, were there any substantiated complaints against the beer retailers in Whiteclay for violations of liquor license laws?
Again, objection, foundation.
Yes.
No.
Is the Nebraska State Patrol committed to providing professional law enforcement in Whiteclay?
Absolutely.
I don't have anything further.
Sean?
Your Honor, the Nebraska State Patrol, to be clear, is absolutely committed to providing quality law enforcement everywhere in the state, isn't it?
Yes, sir. In fact, that's our mission.
And so it is a proud mission for a proud organization.
Yes, sir.
May I ask you some questions about that grant that you mentioned a moment ago, Major?
Sure.
Was that a one-time financial grant of funds for a specific purpose?
Yes.
and that grant was adequate to allow you to have additional personnel for a period of 6 weeks?
We had, I don't believe it was additional personnel. There was a number of hours that were deemed to be paid in probably an overtime status.
Okay.
That we would be able to focus on a particular area.
All right, I understand. So it's not more people, it's more time.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Can you tell us how many of the 66 arrests that you mentioned in 2016 occurred during those 6 weeks?
Well, I believe
If you know,
occurred-
if you don't know, it's okay.
No, sir, I don't. I don't know specifically.
And to be fair to you and to be fair to everybody watching, you had no idea that I was going to ask you that because I had no idea about the testimony. So I don't want it to appear as though, or for you to think that I think you should have known that answer. I just wanted to know if you could tell us. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us this? And again, this is a can you tell us if you know question. Can you tell us how many of those 66 arrests involved re-arrests or multiple arrests of the same arrestee?
No, I can't, sir.
And of the total count of charges that comprise that number of 66, would any of those be multiple charges in a single arrest, or do you know?
I don't know specifically on those 66.
Were you present throughout the testimony this morning, Major?
Yes. With the exception of a couple of verbs.
Before I go to a few questions about Whiteclay itself, let me ask you some geography questions about the Truvia region, if I may. The westernmost county seat in the region would be Harrison in Sioux County, is that right?
Yes.
And the easternmost county seat in the region would be Rushville, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what the distance is between those two county seats approximately?
I'm going to do an approximation of 50 miles, maybe a little further than that.
From Harrison to Rushville, 50?
Yes, yes.
And then another approximate 20 miles to Gordon, sir?
Yes, sir. Maybe not quite that far.
Okay. 15 to 20, is that fair?
Maybe closer to 15. I just don't remember.
Very good. And I don't either. Now, the time that you've accounted for would, of course, include travel time.
The time, I'm sorry?
The hours you've accounted for, that's portal to portal time?
No, the hours that I mentioned were hours that were just documented while the officer, trooper, investigator worked in Whiteclay.
And would working in Whiteclay mean physically present there or working on a Whiteclay problem wherever the work may have been done?
They would be physically within a very, very close proximity to Whiteclay and probably on Highway 87, within probably a mile or so of Whiteclay.
All right, very well. And so would these arrest numbers that you gave us have all occurred within that, we'll call it a mile right now, and I recognize you're not certain of the distance?
Yes.
Do you know how many of those arrests occurred between the South Dakota state line and the location of the Lakota Hope Ministry?
No, sir, I don't.
Do you know how many of those arrests occurred in any subdivision of that geography I just mentioned?
No, I don't, sir.
Did you have a way to catalog the sources of reports or requests for service by law enforcement from your agency to Whiteclay during the time period we're talking about? In other words, to ask a better question, can you tell us if there is data like this available, whether the hours expended were in response to citizen calls?
I would. That data, to a degree, may be available. As far as direct calls from that particular region, that should be available. And that's encoding depending on how many times we assisted the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office with calls for service there.
And do you have any breakdown of that you have to check with you today?
I do not have it with me today.
Now, we've heard that Whiteclay's population is 9 persons. Of course, it's unincorporated, so it's kind of hard to know exactly where Whiteclay begins and ends. But is that approximately correct, as you understand it?
As best I understand, yes.
Would you think that? Well, I should ask it this way, perhaps. Have you started to deploy officers based on data developed as a result of studies of the last point of drink that we learned about, or at least I did this morning?
When we have instances in which we can develop information to investigate where that occurred, we do. We respond to those and we follow up on those instances.
Does your agency have the last point of drink data about these licensees at Whiteclay?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Are you aware of any law enforcement agency that has any data that's been developed as a result of studying these licensees for problems as last points of drink?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
You know a gentleman of that name, Rex Conroy, from Fall River, South Dakota. Does that name ring a bell?
No, sir, it does not.
So I'm going to ask another question now, and just ask it this way. Do you know who the sheriff of Oglala, Lakota County, South Dakota is?
No, I do not.
And do you know who the police chief is there?
No, sir, I do not.
And maybe better today, but before today, had you ever met the Attorney General of the Oglala Sioux Nation?
No, I have not.
No further questions. Thank you.
If I may elaborate on that, Mr. Bell.
That's fair. I'd like to have you have a chance.
When I was the troop commander and the investigative services lieutenant in that troop area, we did have regular meetings as much as we could with the chief of police in Pine Ridge. That was our primary contact to the Pine Ridge Police Department. And we had developed relationships with the Pine Ridge Police Department as a result of those meetings. And they occurred periodically. We tried to do them quarterly. Sometimes they didn't occur that often, but we tried to. And so that was our primary contact, just because of the close proximity of the Pine Ridge Police Department to the Whiteclay area.
How long ago was that, sir?
When I left Troop E in June of 2011, and what has occurred since that time, I am not certain, but I know that our troop commander now and our investigative service lieutenant do everything that they can to try to continue to maintain and also develop relationships with that police department.
And it's important, of course, that you collaborate, because there is criminal activity that crosses state lines.
Certainly, absolutely.
For a frame of reference here, we heard this morning that the Oglala, Lakota County, as I recall the testimony, it may have been the reservation, which is more than a county, is home to a population of about 40,000 people. Am I right that the Nebraska Panhandle's total population is about 80,000 people?
I don't have that data in front of me. I do have the data for the Shattering Duty Station as far as population, and that's approximately 27,000.
Okay. And in that connection, do you happen to have data with you, or are you generally aware of it if you don't have specifics, about how many hours the patrol would have spent in 2016 patrolling the Shadman area?
I don't, sir.
Are you aware of any statistical comparison between Shadman and Whiteclay or any other Nebraska community and Whiteclay that evaluates the deployment of law enforcement personnel based on the volume of liquor or alcohol or beer sold?
I do not, sir.
Are you aware, well, of course you have the Shadman Zone, Shadman State College, we're all aware of that, so it's got a student population that can produce a little spike in drinking, can it?
It's been known to do so, yes, sir.
I have some fading memories. All right, sir. Have you any information you can share with the commission about the comparative number of alcohol-related arrests in all of the Shadman area in 2016 compared to the ones you just reported in Whiteclay?
I have nothing with me today, sir. That can be obtained, but I don't have anything.
Understood. Thank you. No further questions. Appreciate it.
Ms. Wells?
Major Autumn, you may have written this down wrong, but I thought I heard you testify that those 66 arrests that you were referring to did happen during that 6-month time period, from July 8th to August 22nd.
Yes, yes, it did.
And then with respect to the highway safety mini grant, is that something that is done now? Or does your state still have access to continual grant funding for purposes of increasing presence in North Carolina?
It's not something that is currently active. It is something that could be applied for and obtained again, potentially through the Office of Highway Safety.
And I wanted to ask you about your investigative services hours for 2016. You said 177 hours.
176 and a half. So we were out either way.
And investigative services, would that include your investigator who was assigned to handle liquor inspections?
I believe so, yes. Yes, yes, ma'am.
You believe so, or you do know that?
I know that he has coded time that was included in that number.
Do you know how much time your investigator spends on liquor law enforcement and inspections?
No, I don't have that number. I know that that's his only duty, so that's all of his time. I guess that would probably be the better response.
Okay.
He's one of the 6 that is their full-time job.
One of the 6 in the state of Nebraska?
In the state of Nebraska,
Okay.
correct.
So his
his full-time job is enforcement of liquor laws.
Okay, so these investigative services hours of 176, that would be a little low if that included your investigative full-time duties to handle liquor law enforcement.
Well, it would just be whatever hours he had coded to the Whiteclay area.
All right, thank you for
That's
the
okay.
clarification.
Sure. No problem.
And with respect to, I think a question was asked of you with respect to citations for liquor law violations in Whiteclay, Nebraska over a 2-year period. and your answer, I think, was 4.
That was the number of complaints that we had received, specifically the Whiteclay, and I believe all 4 of them were relayed to us via the Liquor Commission.
Major, I'm showing you what has been marked as exhibit number 177. Can represent to you that that's an email from Captain Chunky to the public. Have you seen this before?
Yes, I have.
And is it fair to say that these numbers that were provided to Mr. Luke by Captain Chunky are similar to your testimony today regarding Whiteclay enforcement by the state patrol?
Yes, they are.
It's in evidence.
Mr. Rupp, I offered exhibit number 177 before for the purpose of establishing the reasons for the commission's request for a long-term application, and it was limited to that purpose. And now offering exhibit 177 for purposes of establishing the enforcement hours by Nebraska State Patrol over a period of time between 2002 through 2016.
No objection.
I think it's cumulative and it's not complete. What Major Ott has testified to is the complete record for 2016. That email dated 10/26 of 16 and has partial hours in it. So as long as that's noted and those aren't the hours, the exact hours that he testified to, that's fine.
I would go ahead and receive it. This information would have been, if I remember correctly, the question was, based upon the testimony that Major I had done, and more of that information, so I'll receive that. I'll receive it for in its entirety. And so
I'm sorry. Major, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions.
Just a couple. Yeah, just a couple.
I'm sorry, before you go, any questions for the Major from the 3 commissioners? Just in case they forget anything on that.
I have one.
Okay.
One of the, it seems like we have a spike in hours. Obviously, the grant felt that. But in the 14-year period that you mentioned prior to that, there were average about 256 hours. I assume that also included some investigative time as well.
I'm sure it did, sir, yes.
And in that, that consistency, any idea where we're going in 17? Would you say that we'll apply about up to 250 or 70 hours back to an average because we don't have the grant?
I can't say for certain, sir, exactly where we're headed. In 2017, it will depend a lot on what would occur, and also any additional data that may be developed that would cause us as an agency and as a division, field services division, probably primarily, and/or investigative services division, any data that would be developed that would cause us, that we would want to or need to deploy resources to that area in an attempt to reduce crime or reduce traffic fatalities. That would be our goal.
And the reason I'm asking, it seems silly, but it's 216, Mr. Senator keeps bringing up, where it seemed to peak in investigative hours. Now, I also realize the governor was up there no less than 4 or 5 times, and I'm guessing before he got there may have been more extra hours put in there. But I'm cognizant that there must have been something that peaked it in 216 besides this 176 hours of camp. That fair? What was the emphasis that got him out there?
Well, there was some investigations that occurred in 2016 that we have assisted the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office with. I believe it was mentioned this morning, the homicide, that is a continuing investigation, there's an ongoing investigation that deployed a number of our resources there, so that may have spiked it as well. There was some miscommunication on the actual coding issue of coding hours, and so there's a fair amount of data that is not available previously that will be available from this point forward, or from 2016 forward, that will give us a better idea.
And I think the officers that have been assigned to kind of explain that changing coding and how it'll be a lot clearer in the future. But I guess I'm going back to this. We've had 4 complaints, phone calls. And I don't know about a town of 9 having 4 complaint calls. But I wonder how that even proportion is shared. It seems to me in those kind of hours in a town of 9 people is significantly more, and I think we're trying to do that earlier. Is there a comparison? Do you make comparisons to any place else to see when you're setting up Troop 8, how many troops you need in that area? Is there some chart you look at and say, I only had this many complaints, or I had this many charges, we add or subtract? How's that work?
If I may, sir, those 4 complaints were just the liquor establishment complaints only.
Okay.
They were not all complaints. So I don't have that data in front of me as to exactly what we received in the totality of all complaints for criminal
That helps
violations.
clearly, because the only 4 didn't seem to make sense.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
I do have some questions and some follow-up to Commissioner Bailey's questions. The grant hours, what were the grant hours that actually paid for extra hours? Of how many?
All of those hours, that 170.
I thought you testified earlier that there was 101 hours paid by the grant.
I noted 176 and a half.
There was 176 hours, investigative hours, that were documented for 2016. There were 178 patrol hours for the grant that I'm aware of on my testimony from October.
And I'm reading your testimony from October, which is somewhere in the record here. And you said of the 178 hours, 101 were grant funded. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
Is that true?
And I
that-
misspoke based on what my testimony was in October. It was 101.
All right. So that would be the extra hours attributable to the grant, 101.
Correct.
The 4 complaints regarding liquor license violations were unsubstantiated.
Oh,
Well, I wonder if the witness should have a consultation about whether that relates to an ongoing investigation that might be sensitive and not be appropriate for consideration at this hearing, or I don't know.
Are any of these 4 complaints still ongoing?
no.
Were any of them substantiated? In other words, charges filed against these retailers, criminal or administrative?
I'm going to overrule you upon whether he knew whether the charge was filed against him. Whether unsubstantiated, I think is a little strong, but he can go forward with a charge if he's aware.
No, none of the four were pursued charges.
And I think Ms. Johnson-Wiles cleared this up, but the arrests that we talked about earlier were only during this grant period.
The ones, yes, the 66 were.
Yeah, and surely there were other arrests, but you didn't accumulate that information for purposes of this testimony.
Correct.
I don't have anything else.
We're going to take about a 10-minute recess because I had too much water at lunch. We'll reconvene at 3:05 or 3:06, so...
Is this the room you can be released?
I'm sorry, yes, you may be released. Oh, Brucey.
Bruce.
Yes, sir.
You know, they could put 1,000 hours in this thing, and it ain't making any difference.
Yeah, I understood what you were, I mean, I agree with that exactly what you said. I'm also thinking from an appeal standpoint. At least we check. They're in the corners.
All four of them.
All four of them. They're on inside inside hallways, but they're on all four corners.
So take your pick.
Whichever hallway you walk down, you go right up left, and then